Hey there, welcome to ATL and 29, a podcast that looks at the NBA from the starting point of Atlanta. My name is Kevin Chouinard. I'm here with Glenn Willis and Tyler Jones. We're recording on a Sunday night after the Hawks' two victories over the Indiana Pacers. Uh, what sort of takeaways did you have from the Indiana game, Glenn?
Oh, I mean, it's always interesting to watch it back to back because you get to see the adjustments, right? And Rick Carlisle, after the first loss, talked extensively about the Hawks had like I think 74 points in the paint in that game, which is a big number. And they did make some adjustments to control the paint more. But the Hawks, I thought, kind of handled those adjustments well enough. For me, I mean, I watched this team. Like Trey was really good in both games. But Karis LeVert was really impactful. In stabilizing the offense when Trey is off. Dyson Karis kind of handling a lot of the creation when Trey is off. And I just think that he's giving them a lot right now, and that's what's in this case both of these games that made a big difference.
What's
Yeah,
uh,
that
Go ahead.
the the um the secondary shot creation from Karras, um he kind of carried them home on the first game where they were loading up on Trey and Karras was taking advantage of positive matchups and kind of was doing his magic. And like he's been I mean, I've said this a couple times, but he's been a element the Hawks have not had. I haven't said this. I don't think the Hawks have had this level of shot creator since, I mean, they haven't had it since DeJounte Murray, basically. And the
We're not
difference,
including Trey, correct? You mean
yeah,
like
yeah,
some?
I'm talking about secondary, secondary.
Okay.
I mean, come on, Kevin.
I was just making
Uh,
sure.
Goodness. But Karras, no, since DeJounte, because I forgot DeJounte was even on the team. I was going to say Lou Williams because it's more apt of what Karis LeVert's role is coming off the bench, playing alongside Trey, and taking the pressure off of Trey to make life easier, especially in the fourth quarter. Uh, so like that's been a big boost for the Hawks, and yeah, I mean the weirdly enough, I thought the first game they really outplayed the Pacers. The score didn't reflect it, whereas the second game was kind of a coin flip approach. I thought in the fourth quarter, Terrence Mann lost his composure in a way that's kind of unacceptable for a veteran, and like that almost cost him the game. He's pretty lucky they won that one, but I mean, like Glenn said, they played well overall against the Pacers, and they kind of put themselves into good playing positioning. So that's they got a decent chance of winning the division if they can take care of the easy wins on their schedule to the rest of the way.
Oh, you just jinxed it. Man, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't believe in that stuff. So
Okay.
Same.
The first Pacers game, Moan and Yeka started, Niang and Capella coming off the bench together. And then maybe mid third quarter, maybe late third quarter, Quinn kind of flips the matchups and plays Mo together with Capella and finishes with Niang alongside Okongwu. Uh, what do you want to see in terms of pairing power forwards and centers given what they have on the roster right now?
I mean, so for me, it is a little bit matchup dependent, and you have to choose offense or defense, right? Like Clint needs a shooter at the four, right? A person who's not going to try to occupy the same space that he's going to try to occupy. And so on offense, that works well. On defense, you've got a foot speed problem between the two of them, and so you've got to be really strong on the ball so that they don't get exposed in space. And I mean, they were able to do that for the most part against the Pacers. Now it helps that Halliburton didn't play another game. That would have created a whole different challenge, and Quinn might not have had the luxury to do that if Halliburton was playing, because Halliburton will speed you up, all that sort of stuff. And so for me, I feel like Quinn's got to choose like offense or defense. But in this game, the Pacers had average creation on the ball for the most part, and that allowed him to get away with playing Capella and Niang, where in other matchups that might be too problematic.
And I thought in the second game he was doing I thought Quinn was doing a better job of matching up properly, not having Capella on the floor when Capella and Niang on the floor at the same time when Siakam was in the game. Uh, Not having and also it really helped in the second game. Capella was just like moving like a different basketball player. So that's probably the bigger thing that kind of made made Quinn's life a little easier, and he could uh he could, experiment a little bit more because Capella wasn't just completely like non-selling a lot of the stuff that he needed to do effort wise. Like I thought that, the effort between the first Pacers game and the second Pacers game is drastically different. And that kind of helped the Hawks to be able to get away with more in the A Capella minutes than probably they would want to do against a different basketball team. But they really, at the end of the day, the biggest thing was Capella. Like Quinn just had to understand he's buying minutes for a Congo. And so he has to understand that he might need to even push Okongwu's minutes up even more than what he's already playing, just because, quite frankly, even with Capella, how well he played, I thought against the Pacers in the second game, uh, the Hawks are just a different team with Okongwu out there, and like he's got to, ride him for the rest of the season if they're trying to, you know, have a good standing in playing.
I think the other part too is that in this game, because the guard play at Indiana was not um, something you really worry about. I mean they have good players. Like Neesmith is really good, and Mathurin can really shoot the ball. He's still kind of growing as a decision maker and things like that. He's a great athlete. But in this game, playing when Miles Turner was on with Pascal Siakam playing in Yeka and Moge together lets you switch without worrying about it. And now when Thomas Bryant is on, you don't really worry about that switching in that sense. That I think that was another reason that Quinn went with that group was so that they could just, if they needed to switch, they could switch.
Speaking of growing as a playmaker, I, I suspect, based on a couple of tweets, that Tyler and I disagree on Terrence Mann some. We probably agree on some parts of it, but like some of the things that he's done just make me a little bit crazy. So Glenn actually tweeted one of the plays, and Glenn cropped. I would say Glenn cropped it because I think the tweet that Glenn made from the second Pacers game is something like, "Hey, look at Mo Gay facilitate," and Mo Gay gets the ball on the elbow with like 5, 6 seconds on the shot clock, and he's kind of got to dribble to the kind of from the 3-point elbow to like the free throw elbow, and he does a bounce pass to somebody who's cutting, and I think they get, like a layup out of it.
Yep.
But prior to that play, Terrence Mann has kind of a 3-pointer that he's got to put up. He didn't put it up. He chokes off the three, tries to make some kind of dribble drive. There's a lot of dribbling, probably like 10 seconds of dribbling, and then he gives it to Mo with 5 on the shot clock. Now, to me, that's just something that is happening way too often with him on offense. Like he's not shooting when he's open enough. And then the drives afterward, like sometimes he scores on it. I think he at least scored on at least 2 of them last night. But they're like 10-second possessions. And it's just too much. Like it's just killing the offense. I think if you look at the offensive numbers, it's only been a couple of weeks, but to me, he's killing the offense a little bit when he's out there. Am I crazy? Now, the only reason I bring this up now is because Veet's pretty close to being back now. And so I want to know what you all want to see out of the rotation if Veet is another healthy player to add to the rotation that they already have.
I personally would just like Reese Shea to play more because of his defense, and that'll make life a lot easier. Because I think here's the thing about the offense. The offense is bad without Trey Young on the floor. And so I'm just of the opinion, like I don't have that big of a problem with Terrence Mann, kind of going off script a little bit just because somebody's got to create some shots somewhere, somehow. So like again, similar to the Okongwu thing, the Hawks are just buying minutes when Trey's off the floor. Uh it-
Fair.
I thought against the Pacers he didn't play his best, but he's kind of been up and down for the Hawks, but I think he's finding his footing. If you ask me who would I rather see play, man or Veet, I'd probably go man just because he's the better defender. But neither neither my thing with Quinn in particular, because it really came to a head in that fourth quarter where he just left when there was no Dyson, no Reese Shea on the floor, and no Trey. And it was man being tasked with being the point of attack defender. And then when Trey came back in the game, there was a really big problem with man being the point of attack defender because he just wasn't as he's not Dyson Daniels, and that's understood, but he's also not Zachary Reese. Like he doesn't have the length, he doesn't have really the basketball IQ that Reese has. Like too much of a he's a more of a reactor than a processor. That makes sense, where he relies on his natural gifts to react to stuff and make plays instead of being there ahead of time the way Ricochet and Dyson do. So that's where I just, to me, I think Quinn needs to be more cognizant of, regardless of his veteran status, he can't trust, he shouldn't be trusting man just to auto play him 20 minutes a night. If he doesn't have it, you know, that night he plays 15. If he does, you ride him for 25 plus because I mean, I know the last two games haven't been his best, but like he's had some really high efficient games for the Hawks and he's been really impactful. Uh, so like and like his play finishing has been a boom. And like I like a lot of the stuff he does, but you are right, Kevin. Like some of the he it's the little things that I don't think he's clicking with his teammates. And to me, I think a simple solution would just be to play Reece more because like I fully understanding like his shortcomings offensively right now, but like defensively, they need him on the floor, particularly when Dice is not in the game. Like they're just not good enough at the point of attack without one of those two in the game.
Yeah, I think for me, like we talked about it right after the trade happened, that the like what Niang and Levert were doing in Cleveland is very similar to what the Hawks are doing. That's Man didn't have that luxury. Like Man was in the weak side corner watching Harden do middle pick and roll with Zubac, or Harden drawing a mismatch and ISOing, and the Hawks just don't really do any of that stuff. You know, late in the game, late in the game, teams always ramp up their switching. Like late in a close game, teams always ramp up their switching. So you'll see it there. But I think it's just a big adjustment for him. They're not going to not play him. I mean,
Yeah,
that's just not going to happen. But for me, my thing is when they're playing from behind, they have to have their best offensive team on the floor. You have to have a team that can play fast, make quick decisions, play in the cut, 0.5, every, all those things. And Man's not there with all that yet. Where I want him playing the last 5 minutes that they're trying to get, come back from 8 down or whatever it is. I think when he's on with Dyson and Levert both, when Trey is off, he's fine. He's in a role that's kind of a fit for him. They had to play Keaton what, like 2 minutes,
yeah,
that was a dangerous
disaster,
couple minutes right there. So so
disaster.
for me, I offensively, for the most part, he's making his shots. Even when like his self creation into the shot clock has been surprisingly efficient.
Yeah,
Even if the process it just looks like something the Hawks aren't really looking for, it looks different than what they're normally trying to do. Um, but I don't think he's doing anything like irresponsible or or what have you. I just think he's a limited creator, and he's acclimating to what the Hawks do, and it's a big adjustment for him. But like I said, I don't think he should ever be on the floor as even a secondary option. He should be the most the third guy in any lineup, where he's in the corner playing on the catch, moving the ball, things like that. But when you have some injuries, sometimes it shifts things around a little bit. So I mean, when I watch him play, I'm like, yeah, it's a little wonky offensively. I wonder how long it'll take him to kind of fully get up to speed. And I think he's not. I think the defensive template as a help defender and just a general professional defender, I think it's good. It works. I agree with Tyler. Like, I don't want him on the other team's primary ball handler. I want him more, on a secondary kind of creator on, on defensive end too. But on offense, I just think he's going to have to just keep acclimating. And he seems like
And
a responsible guy who's going to, take in the coaching and the direction and things like that. It's just very different for him, I think.
and I think Beat will actually help here. Like if he's playing alongside Beat, Beat will be more of the playmaker and man can play off him because I thought him and Beat had some good chemistry together. So like I just think I think Man was just in a situation where he was in lineups where it's no Dyson and Trey with him and Levert as the primary playmakers, and he was just asked to do too much or had too much on his plate. Whereas if you get Beat in there offensively, it'll look better. But again, I'm more of the uh defensive side where to me I think it's more important that one of Dyson or Ricochet is in the game at all times for full 48 minutes. Quinn just has to understand that those are your best perimeter defenders. And like the other guys aren't good enough for sustained play against the good teams in this league. Like that Pacers game, they would have if Tyrese Halliburton was playing and Man was asked to be the primary point of attack defender with Dyson off the floor, they would have lost because he was making a lot of mistakes. The Pacers weren't taking advantage of him, but he's just not that level of defender. Uh, and like Quinn has to understand that and trust the guys that got him. The basketball players that helped improve the defense, which was Ricochet and Dyson.
I like what Glenn said about you're not using man when you're trying to play from behind late. I think that's a good assessment. I think I overstated how much. I expect man to play, but yeah, if you're playing from behind late, I think I'd rather see them go in a different direction. I do think that he's irresponsible is too strong of a word. I do think that some of the things that he's doing is actively harmful on offense, but I think that to me, the shot making at this point, I think he's up above his pay grade in terms of shot making at this point. And when some of these shots don't start to fall, it's going to look a whole lot worse. I think he's made more shots than you could reasonably expect him to make. So I'm worried for a little bit once that shot making regresses. I
I mean,
think
that's fair, but like Beat was doing the same thing. Like this is just the caliber of players we're talking about. Like you know, anything he gives us on the offensive end as a shot maker is kind of a bonus there. But um, I, I'm more for like my concerns with Man is on the defensive end because I think the Hawks coaching staff believe him to be a quality, good point of attack defender. I think he's just an okay one, and that matters when he's playing alongside Trey Young. So, uh, like I just think the coaching staff needs to be aware of that and adjust how their lineups are.
Yeah, you kind of compare and contrast like when Man has the ball, say, late shot clock or whatever, he's got a defender right in front of him. The only thing he really has is a step back.
that's right.
That's really the only thing he has. Levert, if the defender comes up, Levert can get past that defender, can get to the paint, can get to the rim, can get to a floater, can get to a layup, whatever that is. And if a defender steps up in front of the rim, he can get a little step back in that 10 to 12-foot range. He makes them all the time. And so, in that sense, the offensively, those two are night and day in terms of what we'll say their bag or what your skill set or whatever it is. And that I think that will show up in close games and late games and things like that. And which I think Veet will help. I think Veet will help as well. Veet's a really high level processor on offense. And that'll just help, I think, the ball move faster and things like that. And hopefully it's just, every week man's getting 5% better or whatever. Because I think he's generally a helpful player. I just think he's adjusted to a very, very different system.
Agreed on like overall. And like I think I'm overstating how like it's not that he's been bad on defense. I just think they believe him to be a quality, like a good to like plus good defender, and I haven't seen that. But like offensively, again, he's a tertiary player. I'm like, if Trey's not in the game, uh, these guys, it's a struggle. Whoever's on the floor, so it's I can only be so critical because like if he's playing next to Trey and another like Karis LeVert or Dyson and Karis LeVert, like I think he's been okay, but I just think he's been in lineups where he's been pushed up to be the secondary or even sometimes the primary offensive engine, and that's just not good enough. Uh, that's just not a good enough formula to win games in this league.
I, I just want to make like a 30-second editorial here. I don't even want to like open this up for like debate or to discussion because I think it's just obvious and you'll agree with me. But I want to put it out there for I'll get to it in a second. But like if you had come to me like before the season, even after the Olympics, and said, what's your floor and what's your ceiling for what the offense is going to look like with Dyson Daniels running it and Trey off. And Dyson Daniels would be right now above whatever I had set for the ceiling. Like
By a lot.
that's how good he's been running the offense. Like it doesn't I know he was a point guard in New Orleans. I saw what he did in the Olympics, which was amazing, but like the way he's running the offense right now is just it's just so good. And the only reason I really want to bring this up is like when you see things like, oh, fire Quinn. Quinn is terrible. And I know sometimes I criticize Quinn on the podcast. Like, fire Quinn or whatever is so ridiculous. And if you need any evidence to prove that, like, hey, fire Quinn is a bad idea, you could start with Riza, but looking at the way that like Dyson runs the offense, like that, as good as Dyson is, and however good a student he is, that doesn't happen without good coaching. Like,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. Yeah.
anything
No,
about
no
Fire
debate.
Quinn, just stop.
Yeah. Yeah. Same here. The thing for me, he's still 21, right? I don't think he's 22. He's still 21, I think.
Mhm.
For a 21-year-old playing his first full year as a starter, functioning as the backup point guard, on the second unit, I think it's really underappreciated for a player to know what they're good at and what they're not good at, and to lean into the things that he is really good at getting downhill, attacking the paint, getting to his floater, collapsing the defense. And I mean, and that's the first thing he's trying to do all the time, whether he's coming off a screen or if the ball's rotated to him and he's attacking the defender who's rotating towards him. He's just trying to get a paint touch and get to the rim. And all the time you see elsewhere, you'll see young players trying to do things they're not that good at. And you're like, do you think you're good at that? Because you're not good at that,
Thanks, Patrick
Dyson
Ewing.
Dyson just does the things that he's good at and keeps it pretty simple, and that's a really helpful approach.
I mean, so the thing with Dyson, like I always felt like he was a point guard on offense. So I've been this what he's doing. I think what happens when an organization believes that you can do it and they empower you to do it, and they're like I feel like a lot of it recently has been like Dyson. We need you to score the basketball. You have to run the offense. You are our best non-trade driver, and so we need you. And so like I think what's happened recently is like uh there hasn't been as much Trey Dyson on the floor together just because Quinn's like every minute Trey's not on the floor, I gotta have Dyson to run my offense. And so like there's been some trouble sometimes because there's like sometimes a lull where uh Trey without Dyson defensively, it's not great. And then Dyson without Trey, because even sometimes when they're both on the floor together, Dyson will run the offense, you know? And so, like, I think that's been a big help for Trey overall in managing his effort, his intensity level, and to keep it going for a full 48-minute game. But like there's been some there's been some lulls where sometimes Dyson's in lineups that he like you don't want Dyson too much with Capella, but with that's just going to happen if you, with how you're rotating your minutes. Like somebody's got to play with Clint Capella, and like you want to maximize Trey with the Congo as much as possible. So like I think Dyson, like I think the follies of Dyson offensive when he's alone in the game is more lineup based than his process because if the Hawks can surround Dyson with like positive offensive players like a Niang, a Reese Shea, and a Kongwu, like he looks really good. When it's Terrence Mann and Clint Capella and Mo Gay or Mo Gay on the floor with a Kongwu, like sometimes it can get a little rough. But like overall, like Dyson, I've been I this is kind of what I expected from him, and I'm glad he's finally able to do it on the NBA floor because this is kind of the role I envisioned for him when he was in G League United and he was available to be drafted in his draft class. So like I'm excited for his upside and his potential because he's kind of showing more than just being a plus starter in this league. He's like he's really pushing like to borderline all-star level if he can continue to find that confidence in that groove. And I think Glenn made the point about the Hawks didn't look for a backup point guard because they wanted to empower Dyson to do it. And so, like, I think for the future seasons, this is going to be a massive boom, like these stretches of games with Dyson just being the primary playmaker.
Yeah, I was looking at his shooting, 67% at the rim. He's up to 35% from three. If you'd have told me before the season started he'd be a top three defender in the league or whatever you want to say, and he would shoot 35%, I would like, I'll take it, you know. And clearly he's a hardworking kid. Clearly he's a hardworking, thoughtful kid that's really working on his game and valuing the opportunity he's getting with Atlanta that he was never going to get in New Orleans, you know. And he's just an easy guy to root for. He plays hard all the time, works through adversities. He has mental toughness. You know, when things are going poorly, he's just still very on task and balanced, and not letting the emotions kind of get the best of him, and things like that. And so it's just, I mean, that was such a great trade. That was such a great trade. So, um, yeah,
I mean,
he's doing
Glenn,
great.
Glenn, do you remember what I think we brought this up a couple times, but do you remember what we talked about? Where are the Hawks going to find leadership? When they lost Wesley Matthews. It was one of our earlier pods early in the season where we talked about it. And I said, sometimes you can lead by example. And I felt like Dyson Daniels, the way he played, the just like the grounded level of his game, he doesn't complain to the refs. He doesn't get out of structure. He's just solid all the time. He plays hard all the time. Like that, there's a carryover of that. And I really feel this team doesn't give up because of Dyson. Like they don't give up because they know
You're gonna hear from
Dyson's
him.
not giving up. If Dyson's not giving up, I'm not giving up. And so they play hard for the full 48 defensively, not offensively, not like, oh, we gotta lock in you know, on offense and then defense, we can kind of take it easy. Like that hasn't happened that much or at all this season. So like I really think like Dyson's been like a real rock for this team through this season. And yeah, like you said, Glenn, it's heck of a trade. Like it's so like maybe Hawks fans should start to trust what Landry Fields and what the Hawks are trying to build here because I also feel like the DeAndre Hunter trade is and Bogey trades are kind of working out pretty well for what they needed for the rest of the season. And so like I think they've done a great job this year, kind of salvaging uh missing their second best player in Jalen Johnson.
All right, we got like 8 minutes left. I don't know if we have enough time to get to this topic, and Tyler hinted at it before. Um, what do you make of Zachary Reese not really finishing games? Like they don't really use him much in the last 8 minutes of the game or whatnot.
I mean, for me, it starts with I'd love to hear Glenn share like what the kind of the thought
Haha, you
process
said
is
Quinn
there.
share. Okay, good try, Glenn.
Uh, yeah, wishful thinking. It's not tethered to any expectation that we would actually get an answer.
Good, good. You won't
But I
get
just,
one.
but I for me, I at least like when they're in situations where they're subbing offense defense at the end of the
He's got
game, I want Ricochet to be on defense like every
absolutely.
time, every single like. Listen, can we just at least start there? Right, that would be my entry point to what I'd like to see change. And there's been, I think, a couple times in the last 3 weeks where that's been he's done that, but I think it's like I can think of like two possessions where he was on, and then maybe that was just because of injury or something, or other team went really small or whatever it was. But I'd like to start there, and the other thing for me is when we talk about Terrence, going back to the Terrence Mann conversation, if you have Niang at the four, that helps Dyson, right? Man plus Ricochet, I mean, and Levert, whatever that is. But I think Ricochet helps offensively with when Man's on the floor as well. I think he's got really good juice playing on the catch and things like that. So I don't know if it's just like our analytics tell us he can't play more minutes than X, and we're just going to manage to that. We're going to take care of him. This is a big, serious investment. We're thinking long term, and that might be defensible, but I don't know why that means he can't be one of the most supported defenders in a defensive possession late in the game where they have to get a stop. In my mind, I want to start seeing him be on the floor for those possessions. To me, that's step one. I would love to see more, just generally, but I don't understand why he's not consistently part of a group that's going out to defend an important possession at the end of the game.
So I'll break it for like the last two Pacers games. I think the reason was that he they didn't like the matchup because I thought the only way he was going to be on the floor to close was to be at the power forward position, and with Siakam in the game and a center and the Pacers were pretty good, especially in the second game. They weren't going to let the Hawks get away with playing Ricochet at the four at all because Thomas Bryant was just moving guys to the front of the rim and like really and Miles Turner as well. Like they made an emphasis of the skinny players you guys have to take advantage of. And so like that I understand why he's not closing there because he's really struggling with physicality. I feel like recently, or at least with bigger bodied players, where they're able to move him out the way, rebound, and that was a big issue in the Pacers game, and they needed like bigger body play. That's why Quinn went Niang and Mo Gay at the four, and then at the three, I think it just comes down to Karis LeVert's playing so well. Uh, Quinn's just going with him. However, I'm with Glenn as well. Like if there's one possession defensive, you know, and we need to stop. Ricochet just has to be in the game. You know, take out whoever you need to take out, but like Ricochet has to be in the game. Ideally, like your probably best defensive lineup is a Okongwu, Moge, Ricochet, Dyson, and then probably Karis LeVert,
I would
honestly.
say Levert, yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
LeVert, as your we need to get a stop lineup. I think Quinn needs to understand that. He's been auto going to either Quinn is very lucky, by the way, that the Pacers called timeout when he subbed out Trae Young and not George Niang uh at the end of the game when they needed one stop. Like ooh, that was like uh, what are you doing, Quinn? Like he didn't want to take Niang out the game because if you want to be critical of Quinn, he just autopilots to I trust my veterans, I trust my veterans, I trust my veterans. But like you can't have Niang out there for one possession. We need to stop to win the game. You can't have Niang out. Like
That's right.
and so like he got very lucky. And I thought like overall like he needs to be smarter on what do I need? Do I need offense or defense? If I need offense, I'm going Niang. Defense, I'm going either Mo Gay or if I can get away with playing Ricochet at the four, I play Ricochet. And like that's a tough that's tough to like see in game. Like I'll give him grace for that, like not knowing to go with Gay or Ricochet close for your defensive power forward position. But if there's opportunities to get Trey off the floor and get Ricochet in the game, he needs to do that instead of Terrence Mann. That's where like that's where he could help himself. But also like when Ricochet has it going, he does close with them sometimes. He didn't do it against the Grizzlies, which is weird. I was at the game. That didn't make sense. But like overall, I just think Quinn auto goes to my veterans, and like his veterans is Karis LeVert. He doesn't trust Ricochet at the four, even though I think there's some games where he could trust him at the four.
I would just say that like it's frustrating at times, like in moments, but like I also get the big picture. Like if they've come up with an organizational plan of like he's supposed to play 26, 27 minutes and you're thinking, okay, this is what's going to get him through the 82 games to a healthy offseason, I'm cool with it. Like roll with the big picture. I
Yeah.
would love like my main reason for wanting to get to a 7 game series if they can possibly get to it against Cleveland or Boston is for Daniels and for Riza Shea to just get those minutes. But like getting Riza Shea to a healthy offseason where he doesn't have to worry about that and can continue to grow his game and try to get stronger, like that's absolutely monumental. So I would be totally cool with it, even if it means he's not going to play, once he gets to 26, 27 minutes, unless something, really funky, really great is happening and you're going to roll with it once every couple of weeks. But like by and large, if he sits, that's cool with me. I want to see the big picture, even if it bugs me on a microscopic level.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the most important part of what they're doing. They're not gonna make the conference finals this year or anything like that, right? I agree with you. A first round, series would be give you a lot of feedback loops and just give you some real testing and things like that. That'd be great.
Any parting
Last thing for me
shots?
is last thing for me is I'm enjoying watching Onyeka Congo attack dribblers and force turnovers. It's been like the last week and a half. He's really been doing a lot of that, and that makes sense. He's not a big center, so he's not always going to have a ton of block shots and things like that. But he can defend a ball handler in isolation and attack the basketball, create turnovers, and he's starting to do that of recent, and I love that.
All right. Very good. Thank you all for taking the time to join me, and I'm sure we'll get to do this again soon. And good night, Bob.
Good night, Bob.
Bob.